This is the bike I use for all of my adventures, the 2018 CRF 250L. It's been 2 years since I last did what I'm about to show you, and since I'm planning a new trip of about 8,000 kilometers in Europe, I thought this would be a good time to prepare the bike. Today, we're diving into the greasy world of axle and shock linkage maintenance. So why bother with all this greasy business? Well, axles and bearings can get dry over time, or water can seep in and do some damage. I want to protect these crucial parts and seal them in grease to prevent wear and tear. Brace yourselves, we're removing the wheels, the rear linkage assembly, and the entire swing arm. You'll see every step and misstep and some oops moments you're better off avoiding. Right, let's get to it. With the bike resting on the side stand, loosen the rear wheel nut. It's a 24 millimeter on this side and the 19 on the flip side. On the front, loosen the fork leg pinch bolts. Some people, silly people, not me, they forget to do this, which makes it nearly impossible to remove the axle. For the axle itself, you need one of these fancy adapters, a 14 millimeter. These, I think, started being rolled out with the 2017 model. There's no nut on the other side. I put the bike up on a stand. I need to raise the rear a bit, otherwise the stand won't fit under the bash plate. You get easier access to everything with the bike up here, so use a stand if you have access to one. When I'm sitting or crouching or kneeling near the bike, I prefer things to be at eye level. Front wheel removal, easy. Loosen the pinch bolts, then unscrew the front axle. This one screws directly into the fork leg on the other side. Now pull the axle out and the wheel should come off easily. Here's a peek at my axle. It's looking decent, I think. Quick tip, resist the urge to squeeze the front brake from now on. I used cheap brake cleaner to tidy things up a bit. The dust seals keep grease in and dirt out, that's their job, and this is what they look like. I cleaned up the front axle with a rag and was happy to observe a thin film of grease still on it. I think mine is still in a pretty good condition. Now for the fun part. Use your finger and pack grease underneath the dust seals. My bearings rotated normally, so I'm not touching them yet. I'm just trying to get a thick layer of grease evenly distributed so that it will create a waterproof barrier together with the dust seal. Then cleaning it up a bit so it won't attract a ton of dirt. Then pop the dust seal back in place. Now slide the wheel back in, ideally without knocking the dust seals out and getting them all dirty. Lube up the front axle. They say a thin layer of grease, and this is my interpretation of thin. And then do the balancing act of threading the axle through. Either use some support from under the wheel, or in my case, I could also pull on the fork legs downwards a bit because the bike can move forward on the center stand. Tighten it a bit and we should be good to go. Notice the pinch bolts have yet to be tightened. And it spins, which means we did a good job. In the rear, unfasten the 24 millimeter axle nut, and then you'll have to push the axle out. A rubber mallet helps. Lifting the wheel slightly also helps. Careful how you let this one drop, it's heavier than the front. The chain is still connected at this time, and do keep an eye on those aluminum dust seals / spacers on each side. This axle has seen more wear than the front, and a third of it looks a bit rough. I'm not sure if that's water or friction damage. Anyway, I've decided to replace it. I already had the part on hand. You need to push the wheel forward and slip the chain aside in order to remove the wheel. There we go. Remember where those spacers fall. The chain guard needs to come off as well. These are the spacers with a bit of grime on them. I took a wire brush to them and got them nice and clean. Just like in the front, you want to pack grease inside the dust seal area on both sides. and then the spacers go back in. The entire swing arm needs to come off, so we need to detach the brake caliper and hose first. Two little screws hold it in place. The brake hose is pretty strong, but maybe try and get the entire assembly out of the way if you can. Underneath, there's a triangle-shaped thing that links frame, rear shock, and swing arm together. Snap a photo of this or mark it so remember how it goes back in. Then we can loosen the nuts. This one is the link to the frame. That one is the link to the swing arm. This one links to the shock absorber. And that one's on the frame itself. The manual recommends taking the bolts out in this order. And you'll want to support the swing arm a bit as well. But in my case, this process went without a hitch. Inspecting the shock arm, a bit dirty and a bit scuffed up on the underside. I gave it a bit of cleaning before proceeding and it ended up looking quite decent. Here's an interesting thing I learned from YouTube. You don't want to push those inner cylinders all the way out. If you do, you run the risk of completely messing up the inner needle bearings. Avoid that headache. You don't want to be putting those back together. So push it halfway out, pack grease in there, and then do the same from the other side. And repeat the process 3 times. Now for the swing arm pivot bolt, remove the plastic cover and you'll find the pivot bolt hidden under there. Make sure you've prevented the bolt from rotating on the other side and proceed to removing the nut. It's pretty snug. Don't knock the bike off the stand while you're loosening it. The nut comes out and then you can see the pivot bolt under there. Push the pivot out. And wiggle the swing arm away. Mind the chain, the end caps or dust seals, and the shock absorber spring, but it should come loose easily. I could have removed the chain guide beforehand, but you can do it afterwards as well. You don't need to disassemble it entirely unless you want to clean it. Use some elbow grease on the swing arm and some brake fluid to bring some shine back to it. The chain guide is a fairly dirty bit. You can tackle that as well if you want. And the same process is for the linkage bearings. Again, mind the needle bearings here. There's a few of them in there, and if you dislodge the needles, they may be a pain to put back in. Then add the dust seals on top of that, and you're good to go. The swing arm pivot bolt looks fine to me, even though it does have this ugly stain that kind of looks like water damage to me. Also disconnect this link from the frame, which is easy enough to do. You will need to get the brake pedal spring out of the way though, otherwise there's not enough room for the bolt to come out. I think the triangle shaped one is called a shock arm and this is a shock link or shock linkage. By now you're probably a grease packing expert, a bit here and a bit on the other side. Notice the visible needles or rollers in there and push grease in there as well. All 4 bolts in this assembly will get the lube treatment because they all see some action during rough riding. I'm pushing the link frame bolt in and tightening it. The short one is the shock absorber bolt, which goes towards the top. Then you can slide the swing arm in. And for those of you who are really paying attention, you may have noticed a bit of an oversight on my part. And we will address that hiccup very shortly. Continue the greasing ritual with the linkage arm bolts. This one connects the linkage arm to the swing arm. And the last one connects the shock arm to the shock link and so to the frame. After that, the brake caliper and the brake hose are put back in place. And remember when I mentioned that the eagle-eyed among you might have spotted a mistake already? Well, it turns out I didn't route the chain correctly. Indeed, I placed it entirely below the swing arm. Yep. When in fact it should be looped around, right? Nestled along this plastic chain guide. Unfortunately, the only fix for this blunder is to remove the swing arm completely. With that silly mistake out of the way, I fiddled for a bit and managed to get the wheel back in place, the caliper, the chain on the sprocket, and also the axle through. Time to get the stand out of the way and brace yourselves for horrible mistake number 2. It hurts me even now to watch the horror I had recorded. Notice the chain guide wedged in between the chain and the sprocket, and me trying to get the bike down and break the chain at the same time and feel my pain. Yep, words can't describe the agony. But it does look like the chain survived the torture without permanent damage. With the bike secure on the ground, I'm gonna torque all the bolts to spec. First the swing arm pivot bolt, then pushed the rear wheel forwards using this rag in the chain clever trick, and tightened the rear wheel axle bolt to 88 Newton meters with a satisfying click of the torque wrench. These nuts for the linkage arm, I made note of the order and the torque values beforehand, see? Maybe I'm being a nut about this. And the moment of truth. Oh wait, it won't start with the kickstand down. And it starts. Why wouldn't it? Snug axle and pinch bolts for the front wheel as well. This wasn't all grease and dirt. This was fun as well. I recorded this using 2 DJI Action 4 cameras and made use of their voice control feature, otherwise they'd be slatted in grease. This project unfolded on a delightfully warm, sunny day in April, one of the first after the chill Romanian winter, and it was actually fun. Not that difficult, just remember to not put the swing arm in before you route the chain properly. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I know people want to see my face, so here it is. In the end, this isn't just about maintenance, right? It's about learning and embracing mistakes and being patient and persistent. And I am ready to right now. Like and subscribe.